Hey, can you give me an audio check?
That's doable.
Seriously, give me an audio check.
Hey everybody, Fatman here, and I know it's been a while, but Sons of Anarchy took a lot out of me, which, by the way, watch that video if you haven't. Oftentimes you'll hear me say, blank is the best show I've ever seen, or blank is one of my all-time favorites. Admittedly, I'm bordering on self-parody levels here, but that's for one of two reasons. One, I try to veer away from making videos that are majoritively negative because, let's face it, there are enough angry dorks on the internet as it is. And two, I do fully mean the praise that I heap on a TV show that I talk about. This isn't over-embellished for the camera. You're always going to be getting my 100% honest feelings on any given subject that I'm talking about. I don't want to bury the lead here, so I say all of this to really put an emphasis on my words when I say that Metalocalypse is one of my favorite pieces of entertainment media, period. Created by Brendan Small and Tommy Blacha for Adult Swim, Metalocalypse debuted in August of 2006 and ran for 4 seasons, a rock opera, and a direct-to-video film before going on its farewell tour in August of 2023. Yes, that is a huge gap of time. We can talk about that later. I do want to shed some light on the series creators, who are both amazingly talented human beings. Blacha has worked as a writer and director on a multitude of iconic projects, including Late Night with Conan O'Brien, WWE, Saturday Night Live, and even created his own show for Netflix in 2022, entitled Supergiant Robot Brothers, which I'd never heard of prior to doing research for this project, but I would love to check that out at some point. Brendan Small is not only the best thing to come out of Illinois since the Blues Brothers,
we're on a mission from God,
but is also one of the most talented individuals roaming the planet, and I will die on that hill. Everything that I've ever wanted to do in life, he's done it. Small is a fantastic voice actor, an insanely funny and witty comedian and writer, and a stellar musician. Those who have seen my videos before can probably guess this by my clothes, but I'm a heavy metal and rock and roll guy. For some quick context, a few of my favorite guitar players are Dimebag Darrell of Pantera, Dave Mustaine of Megadeth, Alice in Chains' Jerry Cantrell, Ted Nugent, and Black Sabbath's Tony Iommi. Not only would I put Small in conversation amongst one of the best of my personal favorites, I would put him in the conversation for one of the greatest guitarists of all time. As a matter of fact, I actively do that when I'm doom scrolling X and I notice yet another list of the best guitar players ever that's missing his name. Aside from musical prowess, Brendan Small has also contributed to quite a few classic projects as well, most notably the animated sitcom Home Movies. With these two at the helm, Metalocalypse was destined for greatness from the get-go. The characters, namely the band, are some of my favorite animated characters in existence. Metalocalypse is an animated musical comedy series that focuses on fictional band Dethklok, a band described by Small as like the Beatles, just 1,000 times more dangerous and 1,000,000,000 times more stupid, and honestly, that is the closest description you could possibly get of Dethklok. By the end of the 2nd season of the show, the band is literally like the 7th biggest economy in the world. And this is never not entertaining. If they delay in putting out a new album, the economy crumbles and mass suicides begin all over the globe. If Dethklok chooses to endorse a product, it's likely to run every other similar product out of business. The band has all this power and influence, and they're the biggest group of morons on the planet. The comedic potential is limitless, and Small and Blacha capitalize on that perfectly. The band members themselves are so idiotic, so narrow-mindedly brutal, horribly selfish and callous. They don't care about anybody else and revel in other people's misery. So why are they so undeniably lovable? They're absolutely hopeless when it comes to anything that's unrelated to their profession, and a couple of them are even hopeless at that. Yet, I simply cannot get enough of their antics. I watched a 20-minute extra of Nathan Explosion reading Shakespeare on the Season 1 DVD. That's it. Nothing fancy or flashy, it's literally just Nathan reading Shakespeare.
Alright, there's more. Hamlet, finally. Hamlet starts talking. Has this fellow no feeling of his business that he sings at grave making? And then Horatio says, custom hath made it in him a property of easiness. Get it? All right. Hamlet then says, 'tis ye and so, The hand of little employment hath the daintier sense. First clown, he's singing this, so he's like, but age with... I'm not going to sing it, though. But age with his stealing steps hath claw.
Band introductions are in order, so we'll start with vocalist and frontman Nathan Explosion. The lyrical visionary of Death Clock, he's slightly brighter than the other band members, showcasing a vast knowledge of rock culture and even being fluent in French. I also adore that Nathan can be slightly parental towards the other band members, especially Toki. And the fact that he speaks in a death metal growl even when he's not singing always shreds me. Next up, lead guitarist Squiskar Squigelf, the fastest guitar player alive. He and Toki's speech patterns will never fail to make me laugh, and I always get a kick out of Squiskar carrying his guitar no matter where he goes, even if he's just chilling in the hot tub. No band is complete without a drummer, and even design-wise, Pickles has me laughing before he's even said anything. I am all in on the skullet look. Pickles is probably the most socially capable of the band, and I'd argue that he understands things on a conceptual level better than the other four members. He's even a pretty stellar vocalist, being the frontman of another popular rock group, Snakes and Barrels. Those who've seen my videos before know that more often than not, I introduce the characters and then dive into the voice actors behind those characters before diving into whatever show I'm talking about on a season-by-season basis. So if you're wondering why I haven't talked about voice actors at all up until this point, it's because Nathan, Squiskar, and Pickles are all voiced by Brendan Small, and the remaining two members are voiced by Tommy Blacha. This is the easiest time I have ever had writing this section, and maybe now you'll understand why I have glazed these two people so hard in this review, and why I will continue to do so all review long.
Oh my.
Small and Blasha are talent personified. There is no other way to say it. Rhythm guitar player Toki Wartooth is up next, and well, this isn't really a hot take, and I feel like it's common consensus in the fandom. I'd still be remiss not to mention the fact that Toki is probably the most adorable and wholesome character across the series. Even though he still has the same propensity for destruction that the other members have, I just can't help it. To an extent, all of the band members are sorta like grown-ass children, but Toki is like that true child at heart. A perfect example of this, and a scene that will never fail to make me laugh, is the scene where Dick Nubler has the band members working on the new album, and every single member has a prostitute sitting in their lap, except for Toki, who opts for a pet rabbit instead. I feel that Toki is a bit more fleshed out and nuanced than the other members as well, as we explore a lot of the abusive relationship within his family, and even come to learn that he's the only non-original member of Death Clock. I've talked about Toki a little longer than I've talked about any of the other members, so take a stab at guessing who my favorite character is. Last, but certainly not least, band bass player and general dick, William Murderface. He's generally filled with more hatred and distaste for other people and things, more so than the other band members are, and he has being a dick nailed down to a science. Purely from a design perspective, I think Murderface might be my favorite. Every member of Death Clock is iconic, but Murderface is like a level beyond. The hair, the tattoos, the lisp, everything about him is fantastic. A death metal juggernaut that's too big to ignore, Metalocalypse brings in plenty of gut-busting laughs, kick-ass tunes, and some genuinely fantastic character work. The series did have a super successful run, but a run marred by some bizarre studio decisions and the longest waiting period of my life. Without further ado, let's get in tune and dive into the absolute gem that is Metalocalypse. The first season of Metalocalypse is a certified classic. The first episode does an excellent job of setting the stage for what to expect moving forward with this series. I don't think it misses a single beat as far as outlining the core narrative and the themes and gimmicks of what the show is trying to accomplish. Most people with even a passing familiarity with the series can quote the grocery scene verbatim. And 19 years later, I still find every joke of the grocery store scene hilarious. After the band's chef is gruesomely disfigured, the band is left to fend for themselves as far as food preparation. Discerning that they're too stupid to feed themselves, the band sews their chef back together and puts him to work. It is every bit as brutal and ridiculous as it sounds. On a side note, I know that it's been 2 decades and Brendan Small is likely to never see this video, but if he ever does, I will gladly fork over a Hot Topic gift card if you give us a full version of Sewn Back Together Wrong. That song is incredible. It's here we also meet the Tribunal, a mysterious Illuminati-style organization led by Mr. Salacia, the Half-Man, voiced by Mark Hamill. Salacia is joined by Senator Stampingston, also voiced by Hamill, who brings in experts to analyze Deathclock's current activities. Filling out the ranks are 4-star Army member General Crozier and elderly priest Cardinal Ravenwood, both voiced by the legendary Victor Brandt. The Tribunal monitors every aspect of Deathclock's lives, usually allowing them to continue with their shenanigans at the request of Salacia. Another gag I absolutely adore in this episode is how monotonously Stampingston introduces the band members to the rest of the Tribunal, using the theme song's lyrics as descriptors. While we're on the subject, this is also one of my favorite theme songs of any TV show. If I was making a top 20 theme song list video, this would easily make the cut. Note to self, make a top 20 theme songs video. Yes, that should bring in the viewers by the tens. Generally speaking, the music found across the entire series kicks ass. There are approximately 0 bad tunes in Metalocalypse. None of them even border on mediocre or just okay. Every single song is a banger. Considering how much weight the music carries across the series, not just being featured in every episode but also playing a core part in the narrative, this was a detail that needed to be perfect. And Small not only understood the assignment, but he passed with flying colors. The following episode, Deathwater, showcases the ludicrous amount of liberty that Deathclock is afforded when recording an album. The band decides to record in the deepest and darkest part of the ocean and produces the Deathwater record, a record meant only for fish and not for humans. This defense actually holds up in court when a fan drowns trying to listen to Deathwater. And we're barely 2 episodes in, and this is already some of the funniest I have ever seen. We meet band manager Charles Oftenson, also voiced by Brendan Small, and Charles is, yet again, another superb character in a mountain of superb characters. He easily has the most difficult job known to mankind. Oh, I don't mean crunching numbers for Deathclock's million-dollar exploits, or defending them in court amidst the several thousand murder cases that have occurred at the band's live shows. I mean directly having to deal with the band members themselves. Being responsible for 5 of the dumbest people on the planet is no small feat, yet he somehow successfully does it. Some of my favorite scenes across the series are the band meeting scenes, which generally occur when Charles is desperately trying to bring Deathclock up to speed on issues that they don't seem to care about at all. This scene being my absolute favorite example of the aforementioned.
Come on, money, man, cough it up. Oh, man.
You know that.
Why can't I have money?
All of you are wasting money by not having finished this record. That's a big deal, guys. You're doing anything but recording, all right?
So
That's what I want
by
to...
sitting here, we're wasting money?
Yes.
We should be saving money by not doing anything, not wasting
That doesn't
it.
make sense. Are you sure you know what you're tagging about? Yes, I do know what I'm talking about. You are killing your own business.
Boring me to death. The business. God.
Well, this isn't boring to me, guys, all right? I want you all to listen up. This is important stuff, all right? If you continue to not record, your money will continue to dwindle.
How do you know that?
How do I know? Because it's my job to know. I work with money. It's my job.
How long have you known that our money is dwindling? And it sounds like he's keeping stuff from us, right, guys?
Yeah, he's keeping it from us.
Very suspicious.
No, I'm not. I'm telling you about it right now. That's what I'm doing. I'm telling you
Yeah,
about
but
those
how
things.
long have you known about the stuff that we don't know about that you're starting to tell us about?
Look, I try to keep you guys in the loop of the business side many times, but
What?
you guys have a very short attention span.
No, we're not!
Well, you're not. What does that mean? That's not even a response to what I was saying.
Confusing.
No, we're not.
It's not at all.
You're not
he
what?
got to admit it. He's on the ropes.
No, we're arguing 2 different things.
We're not.
All right.
We also meet Dick, Magic Ears Nubler in this episode, also voiced by Small, a scumbag record producer with a criminal history that includes tax evasion, soliciting prostitution, drugs, and disfiguring a coworker's face with acid. So, in other words, he is a perfect fit for Deathclock. But nothing, and I mean nothing, can prepare a viewer for the absolute menace of a character that we meet in the following episode, Birthday Face. I'm talking, of course, about the one and only rock and roll clown, Dr. Roxo.
I do cocaine.
Yes, I was getting to that, Roxo. Okay, Dr. Roxo's entire shtick is that he will do and does absolutely anything for some cocaine, and yep, this joke never gets old. It's The same one every single time, but it just does not get old. Blotcha's performance, as well as the way Dr. Roxo is animated, can make even the crankiest of curmudgeons cackle. And the pure, unfiltered hatred that everyone except for Toki has for Roxo is also hilarious. It's almost difficult for me to talk about the rest of the season solely due to just how well done every single damn episode is. I know it sounds weird, but if I deep dived into every single episode, I'd have the same 3 takeaways for most of them. 1, the series is hilarious, and I'm laughing from start to finish for damn near every episode. 2, the animation is expressive, remorseless, and brutal. I love it. And 3, the music is well orchestrated, catchy, and relentless. Seriously, throw a dart at the wall and take your pick of episodes here. You really can't go wrong. Whether watching Deathclock summon an ancient monster in Death Troll, adopting a child dubbed Fatty Ding Dong in Fat Kid at the Death Harmonic, hanging out with their parents in Death Fam, or fiending for golden banana stickers in Performance Clock, the first season consistently fires classic episode after classic episode at the viewer. Mordland is another personal favorite of mine that sees Deathclock dealing with the dreaded Fan Day, bringing legions of fans to their fortress-like home Mordhouse, and even promising to debut a new song at the end of the event. The event is infiltrated by the Jomfru brothers, Edgar and Eric, proprietors of the largest Deathclock fan site, DieForDeathclock.com. The brothers illegally record the song and try to blackmail the band into giving them a good review on their website in exchange for the song back, resulting in the death of Eric and the imprisonment of Edgar in the band's dungeon. The tune for this episode is dubbed Fan Song, and it is one of my favorite Deathclock songs. Lyrically hilarious with some equally stellar guitar work, I'm gonna link this one in the description. You guys should definitely check it out. It is one of my all-time favorites. Murdering Outside the Box is my favorite episode of the season and comes with the revelation that someone is embezzling from the band. General Crozier takes advantage of this situation and sends in one of his undercover agents to infiltrate Deathclock's ranks. The agent is killed by Murderface's codpiece. Again, it's every bit as ridiculous as it sounds. And Deathclock discovers that they've been embezzling from themselves. I love this show. After a copious amount of laughter, great tunes, and many teases of the Tribunal scheming, everything comes full force during the Season 1 finale. The Metalocalypse has begun. General Crozier and Cardinal Ravenwood, sick of Salatia's inaction, decide to hatch a plot to kill the band. In the process, they hire a masked assassin, or the man with the silver face, whatever you want to call him. I don't think he ever actually gets an actual name, whose brother died in Mordhouse during the events of Murdering Outside the Box. Crozier's forces engage in an epic battle with the Clocketeers, Deathclock's hooded employees / built-in army, and during the battle, Charles fights with the Masked Man, wounding but not killing him, and goes on to utter one of my single favorite phrases in the show's history. Hey, that's my bread and butter you're with. As Crozier and Ravenwood corner the band, Salacia intervenes, knocking out Crozier and brutally killing Ravenwood with an undisclosed type of magic, gouging the priest's eyes out and forcing his intestines out of his mouth. Before the credits roll, the dying priest utters the words, "The Metalocalypse has begun," as the first season comes to a close. I will say that while I believe every episode of the show is genuinely well done, the season finales typically go above and beyond. The stakes are always elevated, and while small narrative snippets are usually displayed throughout the season as a whole, things often ramp up a level during the finales, opting to fully focus on pushing the loose threads of those narrative forward. When I say these finales are epic, man, they are seriously epic. I struggle to even think of a specific work that I can really compare these to, but they often feel like the bloody, heart-pounding climax of like a big war film or something. Like I said up top, the first season is loaded with classic episodes. The characters work so well right off the bat that Metalocalypse never feels like it needs to find its footing. The settings, character dynamics and personalities, and the overall pacing make this show feel like a series that's been ongoing for years. This doesn't feel like a first attempt. It feels like you're watching a show that long ago perfected its formula already. The band is instantly likable, the dialogue is witty and crisp, the comedic timing hits a bullseye like 9 out of 10 times, and Though the overarching narrative isn't always the main focus, the story is woven so expertly well in tandem with the more episodic nature of the series that it never feels out of place when the show decides to focus on it and bring it to the forefront. The animation is also disgustingly brutal, but I never felt like it was too over the top. It feels a little weird to say in a show that features every variety of murder, death, and decapitation that you can think of, but I never felt like they were trying too hard to sell you on the blood or the gore or death or whatever. It typically works without feeling like Small and Blasha are trying to solicit some kind of edgy reaction. Metalocalypse is one of the few shows that I could think of where it's not embarrassing and jarring to go back and watch the first season. And that's due in part to the fact that it's really not rough around the edges like most first seasons of a show are. In my opinion, this was an immediate success, and things only get bigger and better going into season 2. Before we get into that though, I wanted to give a very brief fact dump on the music because it's kind of impossible to talk about Metalocalypse without talking about that aspect. I want to avoid being repetitive and stopping down to bring up the music on a season by season basis, so I'm just going to denote this section of this video to that. I'm a metal and rock and roll guy, but I've never really been a big death metal fan. It was never really my thing, and I can count all the death metal bands I genuinely enjoy on one hand. No, I am not listing them because I am not having the comment section of this video turning into that debate and ignoring everything I've said about Metalocalypse. Fatman's list of the top 4 death metal bands I actually like, coming never. Spoiler alert, Deathclock is 2 of them. That being said, if memory serves, I think I actually heard Deathclock's music before I saw the show, and I was immediately blown away. The instrumentals and orchestration just hit differently to any other death metal band I'd heard up until that point. Granted, I hadn't listened to a ton of death metal at 15 years old when I first heard Deathclock, but they definitely grabbed my attention. I even loved the vocals, which was always the point of contention for the genre for me. This may go without saying, but I have met some people in my life, so Deathclock isn't just a virtual TV band. Small went through the trouble of not only writing and creating music for the show, but fleshing out those minute-and-a-half snippets we hear in episodes into full-length songs for full-length albums. This legitimately resulted in a couple of my favorite records of all time, and the listening audience echoed that as Deathclock boasts some pretty impressive real-life achievements. The Death album, yes, I'm showing off my red copy.
Weird.
Released in 2007 and landed at number 21 on the Billboard 200, becoming the highest charting death metal album in history at the time of release. I cannot believe how well the real-life chart numbers and record sales tie into the lore of the TV show, but here we are. That's like a 1 in a million shot, but that really does speak to Small's genius as a musician. The Death album held that record until 2009 when it was dethroned by Death Album 2. Somebody please get me a special edition of that album, I missed the boat on that. Death Album 2 landed at number 15, dethroning the first Death album. The second Death album held that record until 2012, where it was dethroned by, any guesses? Anybody? No? Death Album 3, which landed at number 10 to become the highest charting death metal album of all time. That's right, at one point in history, the top 3 highest charting death metal albums of all time were all Deathclock records. And to this day in 2025, Death Album 3 remains the highest charting death metal album of all time. It's a shame that Death Album 4 didn't continue that tradition, but that came out in 2023 and you just stream stuff now instead of buying it. I'd be remiss not to offer praise to the other 2 musicians that helped Small bring these studio albums to life. Bassist Brian Beller, who's worked with quite a few legends including Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, and drummer Gene Hoglan, who has worked with just about every manner of legendary thrash metal band you can imagine. We're talking Anthrax, we're talking Slayer, we're talking Dark Angel, Death, Testament. Pick one and Hoglan has probably done some drums for them at some point. The man's nickname is the Atomic Clock. He is literally perfect for this. Small's attention to detail and dedication to the music was crucial in the success of these albums. He doesn't just write the lion's share of the material, but he even animated it accordingly. How cool is that? Nearly every single time you see someone playing an instrument in the show, it's drawn to scale. This means that the way you see an instrument being played on the show is exactly how it's played in real life. Anyone who knows me knows that I am a slut for that kind of thing in cartoons, and I think I've run out of words and phrases to accurately describe how phenomenal of a musician that I think Brendan Small is without sounding like I want to service the man. So I'm just going to roll a clip. Did I say my music tangent on Death Clock would be brief? Because I think I did, and I think I lied. If you think I'm a dork when it comes to talking about animated shows, you should hear me talk in length about metal. It can take a while. This next bit actually will be brief, I promise, but tying this back into the amazing attention to detail, I was as giddy as a schoolgirl whenever I spotted that a person, place, or thing was named after a real-life metal band. Here are all the examples I was able to find while watching the series, and please, let me know what I missed, or if you found ones that I didn't, I would love to hear it. I found Dimmu Burgers, Burzums, Behemoth Productions, The Gulf of Danzig, Ex-Hoarder Elementary, Officer Goathor, Gojira's Driving School, The Mastodon, and finally, Dr. Sepultura. Okay, Season 2, for real this time. In my personal opinion, there really wasn't much to improve on, but Season 2 somehow improves on everything tenfold. The voice performances are a little more consistent, especially Nathan and Toki. The animation is more refined, and the writing is tighter and somehow even wittier. Small and Blacha have outdone themselves, and this is evident from the season premiere, Deathcution. Chaos is seen on a massive scale as the band, who's disappeared from the public eye after Crozier's attack, decide to step back into the spotlight and play a charity concert in which they determine how a bunch of death row inmates are going to be executed. The tribunal resumes business as usual, with Crozier now fully under Salacia's command, and recruit Vader Orlog to replace Cardinal Ravenwood as Salacia's go-to. In Death Vengeance, we see Edgar finally escape the band's dungeon only to be recruited by the Masked Man. They form a group known as the Revengeancers, an anti-Deathclock terrorist organization, seeking, you guessed it, revenge on Deathclock. They're seen in the background of a lot of this season, often participating in the kidnapping of fans or torture of the Clocketeers, while also scheming to ruin Deathclock's reputation and endorsement deals. I typically enjoy any time the Revengeancers are on screen, as the Tribunal is clearly being held off as a bigger threat for later down the line. It's nice to see another group being antagonistic towards the band while the bigger threat is held off for later. While the first season maintained a long list of classic episodes, Season 2 has no shortage of quintessential Metalocalypse selections, with Death Doubles, Death Corraldo, and Death Gov being a few of my personal favorites. There's not a metric ton of stuff to say here, the series is still firing on all cylinders. Narrative stakes become more frequent with the introduction of the Revengeancers, and the series continues to impress with great music and gut-busting humor. Continuing the series trend, the season finale, Death Release, is balls-to-the-wall stuff. The opening discussion between the band members juxtaposed to the events that occur later down the line is so jarring, but the tone of the series has been established so well that a conversation between Deathclock about being able to suck themselves off preceding a full-scale battle works so perfectly well within the context of the show. The banter between Deathclock and the opening moments of this episode is also some of the funniest I have ever heard. I love that they all unanimously agree that if they were able to give themselves blowjobs that they would just straight up retire from touring. Their justification being that everything they do in life is to be able to get somebody else to do that for them. Murderface playing the band fire chief is also another gag that puts me in stitches every single time. I am dying at how seriously Murderface is taking this throughout the episode. The band plays a concert ahead of a new record release and holds a party at Mordhaus, a party which is ambushed by the Revengeancers. Charles immediately jumps into action and deploys the Clocketeers, while Fire Chief Murderface leads the party attendees to safety. In an equally wholesome and adorable moment, Nathan saves a drunk Toki from a burning rooftop while showing actual concern for his increased level of alcoholism. Anytime Nathan is parental towards Toki, it makes my heart melt, and this is no exception. Crozier, who's deployed on the ground and trying to stop the Revengeancers, is intercepted by Silesia, who shows him a cryptic vision of an ancient prophecy involving himself and Deathclock. Edgar manages to corner Pickles and Squiscar, but is unable to pull the trigger, his hesitation being capitalized on by the Clocketeers, who seize and beat him. The Masked Man engages Charles in a bloody duel, beating him to within an inch of his life. I also love the touch of Nathan being the one to incapacitate the Masked Man, using an altered version of Charles's bread and butter line. The Revengeancers are foiled by the Clocketeers, and the band is saved. But Charles succumbs to his injuries and Mordhaus is nearly destroyed. I seriously don't know how they managed to make these finales so epic. This is movie level quality as far as writing and pacing. They never feel rushed or random. The tone of the overall series is maintained exceptionally well, even though narratively there's far more at risk than there ever has been. Little by little, it's being revealed that there's far more to the band than meets the eye. And with Charles's death and the destruction of their home, the trials and tribulations for Deathclock are just getting started. I want to start by addressing a criticism that I see unfairly lobbed at this season. The previous two seasons consisted of 19 to 20 11-minute episodes. This season only has 10 episodes, but they're a standard half hour. I'm no mathematician, but that's roughly the same amount of content, so why are we complaining about this? In response to this, Small said he wanted to use the extra airtime to focus on character development and give several characters their own dedicated episode, something that he delivers on in spades. The premiere episode, Renovation Clock, sees the band trying to adjust to life without Charles, as Mordhaus has been lifted into the sky and the band squanders all their money on unnecessary renovations. Their response to this is to plan the most expensive comeback concert ever. But as their record label head, Roy Core Nicholson, has fallen ill, his son steps in and tries to force the band to sign a contract that would indebt them to the label. As Nathan caves under the pressure and moves to sign the new contract, Charles returns from the dead and renegotiates in favor of the band. Charles announces that he had himself pronounced dead and cryptically alludes to something much bigger at play that I'll tell the band about in due time. This is not a cop-out. You cannot kill my boy, and I was elated to see Charles back. It always befuddles me when people want to bag on this season and claim it as weaker than its predecessors. I do understand that viewers of any sort of media will tend to have a nostalgia bias towards the earlier stuff, but Metalocalypse continues to serve up grade A stuff. Remember Death Health? Remember this scene?
Dude, we partied too hard, so now our bodies are in terrible shape. So we gotta trick the doctor by making it seem like we're in really good shape. And there's only one way to do that. Bleach. Here, drink this, Murderface.
Maybe this sounds a stupid question, but why don't we just pour bleach into our cups of urines?
No! Drink the bleach!
Bleach is healthy. It's mostly water. And we're mostly water. Therefore, we are bleach.
This is obviously all subjective, but in my opinion, that scene is as iconic as anything found in the first season of Metalocalypse. Grocery store scene aside, that's probably the most quotable portion of the series. It's not just Death Health, though. I have a general methodology for determining what makes a great TV series, at least in my opinion. Take a look back at the entirety of a show, its whole catalog, and envision yourself making a top 10 list of the best episodes. Can you pick 2 to 3 episodes from every season? I'll tell you now, if all of your picks come solely from the first 2 seasons of a show, that means that the series had a great run but isn't necessarily great overall. If you can compile your picks from all over, from any point of the series, that means well, maybe not always the strongest season of a given TV show, that a series was consistently putting in the effort and overall was a great time. Spoiler alert, Metalocalypse is that second option for me. Yeah, I may prefer some seasons over others, naturally, but there was never a point where I'm watching this show and looking at a season and thinking, oh, these are mostly duds. Every season of Metalocalypse has something to offer to the overall quality. Season 3 is no exception. If I was making that theoretical top 10, I can tell you now that Death Health, Death Miss, and Death Residuals are all an easy lock for me. Even though the amount of content is roughly the same, the finale does feel like it creeps up faster than usual, but it's an excellent addition to an already star-studded lineup. Double Booked Clock sees the band sulking over Charles's busy schedule and, by result of that, his neglect of the band, leading them to decide to book a couple of shows on their own. One in Syria and one in Israel. The problem here being that the band accidentally books those two shows on the same day, creating a rock and a hard place situation for them. As Death Clock now has to decide which country is going to get the concert, tensions skyrocket, leading to the promise of a long, violent, and bloody battle in the Middle East between the Jews and the Arabs. I never want to hear The Simpsons predicted this ever again. This is surreal. Charles comes up with a clever plan using 3D programs so the band can play both concerts simultaneously, leading to peace in the Middle East at last. So far, Death Clock and Van Halen are the only two bands to pull that off, and good for them. During all of this, the Tribunal unveils Project Falconback, a project meant to utilize all the funds from Death Clock's new records to fund their own nefarious schemes. Charles, wanting to be one step ahead of the Tribunal, is hinted at as having some knowledge of Salasia's true identity, and recruits Edgar to help him figure out the Tribunal's plans and mount a counterattack. Again, I don't understand the criticism thrown at this season. It's easily as solid as the other seasons, and it delivers on literally everything we want from Metalocalypse at this point, while also doing a fantastic job of fleshing out these characters and their backstories. Sure, the overall narrative takes a bit of a backseat, but considering they put their foot on the gas and never let up moving forward from this point, I think a better understanding of these characters and the way that they function is crucial before going into the endgame. Brendan Small does this to great success. In this season alone, we learn about Squiscar's background and his relationship with his family and Father Clock. In the premiere, we learn more about Death Clock as a band and their relationship with their record label. We even see an as of yet unnamed member that we've never met before who used to be part of the band. In Death Residuals, we garner a better understanding of band roles or lack thereof, and Rehab Clock gives us a good look into Pickles' insecurities and his addiction problems, tying back to why his previous band, Snakes and Barrels, failed. I love all of this because it's a brilliant setup. I've always been of the opinion that the members of Death Clock go through the most character development and change as individuals during the events of Season 4, but the seeds for that are all planted here. That's vitally important because when it does happen, it never feels like it's a forced change or it's a change that came out of nowhere. We can follow the breadcrumbs back to Season 3 and see that this was all established and purposefully intended here. Maybe it's not as epic as the first two seasons in some regard, but I'll be damned if I'm still not completely enjoying the ride to the fullest. Okay, I actually have a legitimate criticism for the first time all video. All things considered, it's small potatoes, but I feel the need to mention it anyway. Season 4 returns to the original 11-minute runtimes, but it cuts back on the episode count. Instead of 19 to 20 episodes, all we get is a dozen. And while I am still of the opinion that the story is told exceptionally well across these 12 episodes, I am only complaining because I wanted more. Which, come to think of it, actually negates this being a legitimate criticism, but Metalocalypse got Werner Herzog. That should nullify any complaints that one might have during Season 4. He provides cryptic narration throughout the entirety of the season before finally appearing in the finale. And man, Small and his team are really kicking the narrative up into high gear. We are approaching the story full force throughout Season 4. Herzog is spouting cryptic lines about prophecies and death and an apocalypse of metal, all bolstered by dreams that Nathan is having about a whale that seems to be some sort of underwater prophet. As Mordhaus finally returns to the ground, the pressure is mounting on Deathclock to release a new album and save the economy. Prank Clock sees the band finishing their new record and preparing for its release. However, as all the ships carrying the new record set sail and get ready for distribution, a cataclysmic storm destroys all of them, sinking every single copy of the record and leaving only one intact. The master copy of the album, which is currently residing in Mordhaus. Nathan, unhappy with the record, has a vision of the whale prophet instructing him to destroy the record, which he does, much to Pickles' dismay. This move single-handedly crashes the economy as it enters a gruesome recession. Pickles and Nathan begin to drift apart, and Nathan begins to suffer from writer's block. The label, unimpressed with the new demos that Deathclock is turning into them, offers a super strict timeline on a new album to prevent more economic destruction, and hiring on no-nonsense producer Abigail, voiced by Janine Garofalo. Remember that thing I said a little while back about being able to make a top-tier list of episodes with picks from any single season? Yeah, well, here's one of my Season 4 picks. Death Camp is an absolute showstopper for me. It checks every single box of my weirdo list of things that I love to see in Metalocalypse. A focus on Toki being childlike and adorably wholesome as he signs up to go to Rockaroony Fantasy Camp? Check. Nathan fussing over Toki before he leaves for camp? Going as far as to buy him a snow globe souvenir of Mordhaus to take with him so he doesn't forget the band while he's gone? Check. I can't. Check. It's there, it's adorable, it's wholesome. I feel so gay for fawning over this stuff, but here I am. The closing scene of this episode too, man. Holy crap. It never fails to put the biggest, dorkiest smile on my face no matter how many times I've watched it. The band finds out that their ex-guitar player, Magnus Hammersmith, voiced by Mark Maron, is one of the counselors at the camp, and remembering that he swore revenge against the band, fear for Toki and flee towards the campsite. There's a nice role reversal as a bully named Ludwig turns out to be the true antagonist, as he's been making poor little Toki's life hell during the entirety of camp. After Ludwig nearly throws Toki into a diabetic coma, Magnus intervenes and saves Toki. The band arrives just in time to see Ludwig smash Toki's snow globe as Nathan overlooks the scene, and man, I don't think I've ever seen Nathan Explosion look this pissed off. I adore, with all of my heart, every single second of the ending of this episode, and I'm gonna force you to love it too, because here's a clip.
You know what? This Sam's bullshit. I'm not some regular jack-off dildo campers. My name's Toki Wartooth, and I'm in Deathclocks. And I'm taking my snow globes and getting the fuck out of here. Oh no, where's my snow globes?
You mean this? Oh shit, little kid. You just fucked up real bad.
Hello, Muse.
Hello, Pickles.
Tell me, which hand do you fret with?
Tensions continue to rise amongst the band as they once again decide to head underwater to record the new album. The band is informed that no woman aside from Abigail is allowed on board due to security risks, lending to several months' worth of ongoing sexual tension between everybody on board. The band members each try to seduce Abigail to no avail. Charles, unhappy with the progress of the record so far, isolates the band members so they can go and record their parts in the deepest parts of the ocean, with the exception of Nathan and Abigail, who are left alone at the control board to monitor everyone else. Hitting a breaking point, Nathan decides to go down on Abigail, and this is picked up through the mic feed and streamed to the rest of the band members. Deathclock, one song shy of completing their new album, emerge from the water and attend a promotional dinner hosted by their record label. The band just looks terrible as a unit here. Tensions are at an all-time high, a drunken Toki gate crashes the party with Dr. Roxo, and Nathan keeps trying to make himself and Abigail an item. It all comes to a head when an angry Pickles declares that Nathan's been a problem for the band all season long. and derides him for being completely selfish as Pickles announces that he's quitting Death Clock. Death Clock then goes on to announce their final show, and Roy Nicholson gives them one last speech as they prep for the concert. Nicholson's speech actually hits me in the feels, like it's legitimately heartfelt. Nathan considers doing something he's never done and apologizing to Pickles, but before he can do so, Salacia reveals himself and attacks the band, brutally killing Roy Nicholson in the process. Due to some quick action by Charles, the band is evacuated to safety, where he finally reveals to the band Salacia's true identity as the Half-Man, an ancient and powerful magical being. Charles then tells them of a prophecy involving Death Clock, and begins to tell them of the Metalocalypse. When I said they go full throttle on the story, I meant it. The back half of this season is some insanely rewarding material, paying off almost everything that's been teased about the Tribunal and Salacia so far. We finally begin to see more of the bigger picture as we enter the season finale, the Church of the Black Clock. The band meets Ishnifis Miadel, high priest of the titular church, who reveals to them that the church were the ones that brought Charles back to life. Because his soul was separated from his body, Charles was deemed the dead man, becoming invisible to Salacia. In the interim where he was believed to be dead, this is what allowed Charles to gather intel on the Tribunal. Ishnifis also reveals that Salacia ushered in the Metalocalypse when he killed Cardinal Ravenwood, and that the band's songs aren't just songs, but messages shared to the world that would prevent the end times. He also shares knowledge of the whale prophet that prompted Nathan to destroy the record in Prank Clock because that record had the wrong message. The band, still kind of unsure of what to make of all of this, attends Nicholson's funeral where Nathan gives the eulogy. During the eulogy, and through some excruciatingly hilarious physical pain, Nathan manages to apologize to Pickles, reuniting the band. This may be my favorite example of character development found throughout the series. Death Clock is notoriously anti-emotion, and to see Nathan not only show remorse, but actually apologize, to see the rest of the band not only accept the apology, but be filled with joy and love at the gesture is mind-boggling. These are not the same characters from the first season where something like this would be unfathomable, but again, Small and his team have laid the groundwork so well that this doesn't feel jarring or out of place. It's quite the opposite for me, actually. I love it. This continues and pays off the character development that was started as early as the end of season 2. The bandmates were always shown to kinda care about each other, but they covered that up by just pretending to hate each other less than everyone else around them. To see this finally expressed out loud by the band at what is possibly their tensest moment is legitimately heartfelt, and it's utilized extremely well, as I really can't see any other scenario that would cause Pickles and Nathan to reunite. The moment is cut short, however, as another jaw-droppingly epic finale takes place. The Revengeancers attack, now joined by Magnus, and begin to slaughter the attendees of the funeral. Charles fights with the Masked Man, as Nathan desperately tries to rally his band members to him to ensure their safety. Realizing that 2 from their number are missing, Nathan looks up in time to see Magnus stab both Toki and Abigail and kidnap them, as Charles quickly rushes the rest of the band to safety. Now aboard the Death Sub, Charles instructs the band to finish the final song from their new album, claiming that it's their only hope to stop the Metalocalypse. In order to do so, they need to rescue both Toki and Abigail, who Ishnifis believes to still be alive. Nathan agrees and promises to destroy everybody who is a threat to Death Clock once their friends are rescued. This finale is nothing short of incredible for me. I have to highlight the character work, which is the best it's ever been. The stakes have also never been higher, and it gets legitimately intense to witness the threat level here. The band is targeted in almost every finale, but this is really the first time that we see one of them seriously hurt and missing in action. These aren't just brutal, destructive morons anymore. They're brutal, destructive morons with a heart. Small and his team are expertly telling the story they've been intending to tell since the beginning. And it shows with how lovingly and well-crafted all these story beats are. The consequences have never been more dire for Death Clock. And while this would ultimately be the final season of the show, there's still much more story to tell. A little over a year later, the story of Metalocalypse would continue in an hour-long special dubbed Metalocalypse, the Doomstar Requiem. Billed as a rock opera, the special continues directly after the events of Season 4. I have literally only one tiny nitpick about this special, and it's that Tommy Blasha did not return for the production of this. I have no idea why, but naturally this meant that all of his characters needed to be recast. This brings up a couple of minor issues, as he did voice Toki, and Toki is pretty essential to the plot of Doomstar. Deathclock touring member Mike Keneally fills in as Toki's singing voice, while Small himself would take on the mantle of voicing Murderface. Toki sounds pretty good, and I'd honestly have trouble telling that it wasn't Blasha if I didn't have the prior knowledge of his recast. Murderface does admittedly sound a little off, but Small is serviceable as the character, and Murderface takes on such a reduced role anyhow, so it's not really a big deal. Dr. Roxo has only one small appearance during this entire special, and, well, it is admittedly just the tiniest bit jarring. Again, it's serviceable. The special opens on Ishnifis and the Church of the Black Clock, singing about the Doomstar, a mysterious omen born ahead of the Metalocalypse. The star is foretold to bring death, as well as give Deathclock unheard of power should they choose to reunite. Toki and Abigail are revealed to be alive and in Magnus's clutches, while Charles deploys the Clocketeers in a desperate search for the missing Toki and Abigail. Ishnifis urges the band to step forward and save their brother, a term which every single one of them absolutely hates. After a less than stellar live show, the band finally agrees to go forth and save Toki, if only to keep their fans from leaving the show and to keep the money flowing. My absolute favorite part of this special shows a flashback detailing Toki's origins in the band and how he got to join, as well as featuring a mind-blowing guitar duel between him and Squiskar, which at the time was the longest uninterrupted guitar solo to air on TV. Ishnifis and Edgar help the band prepare for their rescue mission, while Charles announces that he cannot stand by and refuse protection, effectively retiring as the band's manager. Isolated and unsure, the band is cornered by a mob of angry fans. The fans attack the band members, cutting Murderface's wrist in the process. The band is cornered and saved by none other than Dr. Roxo. It's a bit part, and it's the only time he's in this special, but God, it makes me lose my head laughing every single time. I also really like the touch of Roxo finally coming through to help save Toki, as Toki has bailed Roxo out so many times throughout the series. The band deduces Toki's location and charges forward, only to be met by the masked assassin. Ishnifis sacrifices himself so the band can escape, and Deathclock straight up contemplates leaving Toki behind and just heading for safety. Nathan and the guys ultimately realize they'd risk their lives for anyone in the band, and truly accept that they are indeed brothers, finally rushing forward to save Toki. The band find Toki and Abigail and are once again confronted by the masked man. At that moment, the Doomstar shines above the reunited Deathclock, giving them godly supernatural powers as they finally accept their fate as brothers and destroy the masked man once and for all. Witnessing all of this, Magnus finally comes to the realization that Deathclock have the power of gods and that he was never the hero. Filled with regret over his allegiance with the Revengeancers and the masked man, Magnus takes his own life. The reunited Deathclock play a concert as the credits roll, and Charles is revealed to be the new leader of the Church of the Black Clock. In a post-credits scene, Murderface is shown to be overtaken by a black substance emanating from the cut on his wrist, thus ending the special on a cliffhanger. Doomstar Requiem is short, sweet, and to the point. This special wastes no time in propelling the narrative forward, and in case you've never seen something of this nature, it's pretty much almost all singing. I actively enjoy that about this special, as we see characters who don't typically sing get a chance to shine. Pickles has always had a great voice, but I was surprised by how well characters like Charles or Edgar could carry a tune. Though they are both voiced by Brendan Small, so I guess that's not that surprising. On another note, George Corpsegrinder Fisher of Cannibal Corpse absolutely kills it as the Masked Man, and even Jack Black shows up for a fun cameo. I haven't seen a metric crap ton of musicals or rock operas for that matter, but whatever you want to call it, the Doomstar Requiem is the best version of whatever this is that I have ever seen. I am absolutely in love with this soundtrack. It's less of your typical Death Clock fare, but it's more dynamic and varied, offering different styles and genres that Death Clock would normally never attempt. My mind immediately goes back to songs like Given Back to You or How Can I Be a Hero. The Doomstar Requiem is limitless in its creativity. It's open to experimentation with its music without drifting too far from the source material, and most of all, this works on every single level that we've come to expect from the TV series. This is proof positive that Metalocalypse does not need to be contained to one specific story structure. Brendan Small is just that good. He really goes the extra mile here too, employing a 50-piece orchestra that was composed by Bear McCreary, the legend responsible for working on God of War Ragnarok, The Walking Dead, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and Angry Video Game Nerd the movie? He really does get around. It's gonna take you back to the past to play those games that suck ass. I actually cannot sing the praises of this special enough. All it does is reaffirm my undying love for all the work that Brendan Small touches, including my love for these characters and this story. I have literally not stopped listening to this soundtrack since it came out. I have played this album through once or twice a week since 2013.
Stop it. Get some help.
As the last stepping stone before the big finale, Doomstar Requiem is a phenomenal feat. With the Revengeancers, the Masked Man, and Magnus in the rear view, and Toki and Abigail rescued, and the band back together, the only thing now standing in their way is the Tribunal. It was then that the blackest and most brutal thing of all happened. Adult Swim canceled Metalocalypse. These absolute bastards really did decide to pull the plug in the closing moments of this story. I kid you not. Small had said that he initially planned one more season of the show to end things, but after pitching the concept to Adult Swim, they turned it down, claiming they didn't have the budget for it. Well, that's not a big deal. Metalocalypse was super popular. Surely somebody else would throw the funds at it to make it happen, right? It would be lucrative for any studio. Someone else could surely purchase the rights to Metalocalypse and fund it. Turns out, not only were Adult Swim insanely pig-headed for denying the renewal of the series, they were also increasingly stubborn and greedy. You see, not only did they not want to fund the continuation of the series, they just straight up didn't want anyone else to have it either. There were petitions, there was a campaign called Metalocalypse Now that urged Hulu to fund the rest of the show, which was successful, by the way. I remember that. I signed that petition. I was one of the Clocketeers working to bring Death Clock back. Even with Hulu's agreeal to co-fund the project, it still wasn't enough for Adult Swim. A couple of more studios even came forward offering financing, and Adult Swim still declined. Then in 2016, the final nail in the coffin kinda hit, and all our hopes and dreams as fans went out the window as we had waited with bated breath after Doomstar Requiem had ended. Brendan Small came out and announced that he was all but done making Death Clock records, as Adult Swim still owned the rights to everything and after numerous attempts, still refused to budge. All seemed pretty lost. That is until 2021, when that tentative title from all of those years ago, Metalocalypse, The Army of the Doomstar, was officially announced to be in production by Adult Swim. After more waiting and very, very little news other than the title of the project and the fact that it would be a direct-to-video deal, a teaser for the film dropped in June of 2023, and I kid you not, I shed a tear watching it. I really did. We were finally going to get closure. This wait was torture. And this is coming from someone who waited from 2005 to 2013 to play Sly 4. Oh, good God, I have been waiting for Sly 5 for 12 years. It's never happening, is it? But finally, after 10 long years, I was going to see Death Clock again. I would see the conclusion to the story that I adored with every fiber of my being. I was excited, I was thrilled, I was also nervous. I have the utmost trust in Brendan Small as a creator, but I've really yet to see a revival or a continuation in the modern age that truly holds up to the original work with very, very few exceptions. Would Metalocalypse be any different? Or would it fall to the same trappings as 95% of all that other crap did? August 2023. The last time I saw this band was in October of 2013. I can really only sum up my feelings on this movie in one way. I watched this with my good friend and YouTube partner Skeletor, so he can attest to everything I'm about to say. I am 31 years old. Watching Army of the Doomstar made me feel the same way I did when I was 10 years old, waking up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday, pouring a way too big-ass bowl of Fruity Pebbles, and settling in to watch my favorite cartoons. I had the time of my life during this movie. This checked every box. This hit every mark. I laughed until it hurt. I cheered and I clapped at certain scenes. I talked when it was inappropriate to talk during a few portions of this movie. I reacted audibly to characters that couldn't possibly hear me. I was as at home as a black person is in a crowded movie theater. I hope that joke doesn't ruin the wholesomeness of everything I just said. For those who haven't had the pleasure yet, there will be heavy spoilers ahead, so please be warned. The Army of the Doomstar picks up directly after the events of Doomstar Requiem, with only Nathan having memories of what really happened. And right away, we're not 60 seconds into this movie and I have already let out a cheer. The second Murderface opened his mouth to speak, it was evident that Blacha was back. Deathclock announces a new record and tour, but Nathan, struggling with PTSD from the events of Doomstar Requiem, collapses on stage and rumors of him being unfit to perform with the band start to circulate, led of course by heavy tabloid pictures of him gaining weight, along with plenty of other unflattering photos. During a memorial service for Ishnifis, Charles tells Nathan that he must write the Song of Salvation, a song so powerful that it'll save the world from the Doomstar and the Metalocalypse. Charles reveals to him stone tablets that depict Deathclock as some sort of ancient saviors, while also tasking Pickles to keep Nathan motivated. Nathan declines, desiring to live a normal life, and proposes to Abigail, who promptly rejects the proposal. Enraged and confused, Nathan directs his anger at the fans, telling him he's breaking up with them and that he hates them, and decides to ultimately focus his effort on writing the Song of Salvation. The band embarks to a secret studio retreat, spearheaded by spiritual band guidance leader Dick Nubler. Of course. It definitely feels like this film realized that Blacha's characters were underutilized the last time around. So during the memorial service, they give Dr. Roxo the spotlight for the best damn rendition of Amazing Grace that I have ever heard. Meanwhile, General Crozier is temporarily freed of Salacia's control as he learns of Salacia's attempt to control another. Crozier attempts to send a warning out, but he is intercepted by Orlog as Salacia reveals his plan to control Murderface. There are some sickening frames of animation depicting Murderface's control and hallucinations. His descent into madness is stunningly brutal, and is highlighted super well by a dark color palette and usage of shadows. This is legit disturbing. Salacia attempts to ruin Nathan's confidence and discover the location of the Army of the Doomstar, in a preemptive attempt to thwart his world takeover. Nathan does a lot of wrestling with himself, but ultimately does write the Song of Salvation. During a performance of the song, however, Nathan realizes that it's the wrong song, as the Doomstar rapidly approaches and ushers in the Metalocalypse, destroying chunks of the planet and killing millions. Salacia seizes this opportunity and mounts an offensive, killing the Army of the Doomstar and Dick Nubler in the process. Man, this scene is choreographed beautifully. The animation on the band is the best that we've ever seen. And there's a real subtlety in the way that Nubler shields the rest of the group from the attack before allowing himself to be killed. I also really love some of the line deliveries in this thing. When Nathan looks up and goes, "Oh my god, it's the wrong song," right before everything goes to hell. God, it is beautiful. Squiscar is seriously injured in the attack, and my heart jumped to my throat for a minute because it really did look like he was a goner. Maybe it was in my overexcitement to finally watch this movie, and Maybe it's because I've just been waiting for so long, but I fell for everything this movie threw at me. Crozier is freed from Salasia's control and offers to help the band as Murderface flees, blaming himself for sabotaging the band. An unconscious Squiscar is cleverly able to reveal to the band that Murderface is possessed, and I won't spoil this specifically for people who haven't seen it, but I can't believe this running gag that was established all the way back in Season 1 serves a narrative purpose. This is genius. Crozier tells the band how to free Murderface of Salasia's control, and the band does so, almost killing him in the process. Crozier and the band rendezvous with Edgar, and dear lord, I cannot tell you why, but the hardest I laughed all movie was Edgar telling Crozier to shut up and throwing his sandwich in his face. I'm talking like, hey Skeletor, rewind real quick, pause that, let me laugh for 5 minutes straight before we can resume watching this movie type of laughing fit. Edgar hatches a clever plan to help the band perform the true Song of Salvation. God, on another note, every set piece in this movie is nothing short of astonishing. They are absolutely gorgeous. I will keep harping on the animation, it is absolutely fantastic. During the performance of the song, Salacia winds up capturing the band members, hooking them up to a superconductor machine meant to harness the power of the Doomstar. This would allow Salacia to enact a ritual known as the Great Reuniting, which would make him whole again and reveal his true form. A ritual sabotaged by Nathan, who injures himself severely in the process. Crozier and Edgar infiltrate Salacia's facility and plant a bomb to destroy the machine once and for all, with Edgar unfortunately being killed in the process. His last words are about finally being able to rejoin his brother Eric. God, I did not expect this movie to hit me in the feels as much as it actually does. One final battle ensues, spearheaded by the Tribunal, who are joined by the US Army and their own forces, while Deathclock are joined by the Clocketeers, their legions of fans, the Church of the Black Clock, and Charles. When I said that the TV show season finales were movie-level epic, well, this puts it all into perspective. We're here, and this battle is movie-level epic. Except that I prefer this battle to almost any non-Lord of the Rings movie battle that I've seen in recent memory. This does not disappoint. Everyone is here, everyone's fighting, everyone's playing for keeps, and I was quite literally sitting on the edge of my seat during all of this. Charles battles Orlog, finally managing to kill him, and Crozier regains control over the US military, instructing them to stand down and take the Tribunal's forces in captivity. Small has not lost his touch, by the way. Every death during this battle is as brutal, if not more so, than anything found in the TV series. Only one obstacle remains as Salacia emerges in his true form, and God, this is legit some kaiju level right here. Deathclock channels the power of the Doomstar and draws on the strength from their fans, and finally beats Salacia, instructing him to go into the water. Full disclosure, I was at half-mast during this entire fight, and I went full-on when they said go into the water. It just cherry on top. Salacia is forced into the water where he is killed by the Whale Prophet. Deathclock, finally victorious, turns to address their fans. You can call it cheesy, you can call it predictable, but Nathan realizes that the fans were the true army of the Doomstar all along. And I will be damned if I said I didn't have the biggest, stupidest, goofiest, happiest smile on my face while he was making that revelation. And again, full disclosure, I didn't see that coming. Just, wow. I mean, wow. We could easily be here another hour with me gushing about how much I really, truly adored Army of the Doomstar. But I'd just be babbling like an idiot and repeating myself, as opposed to babbling like an idiot and not repeating myself, which I've been doing all video. I can sing the praises of how excellent a finale this was literally all day long. It was expertly paced, it was beautifully animated, wonderfully choreographed, hilarious, and a more than worthy finale for this series. The best way to really sum up my feelings on Army of the Doomstar is that it made me feel something. This isn't me trying to paint myself as some emotionless, jaded who couldn't be bothered to give a reaction to something, but I want you to honestly think about how many pieces of media that you've seen, especially pieces of media that you've seen recently, that actually solicit a strong emotion out of you. Most newer TV shows or movies that I watch, I can usually just boil down to, yeah, well, that was okay. Or, yeah, that was good. But that's about it. Even if I enjoyed something that I was watching, I don't really have too strong of an opinion on that thing. And I definitely don't walk away feeling connected to the characters and the story and the events that we just watched those characters go through. Granted, Metalocalypse had 7 years of prior media before this movie, but I was entirely captivated by every single minute of the Army of the Doomstar. And I watched the entire thing with a pure childlike amazement and excitement. That's really not something that I can say all that often. And the fact that there's a piece of media that can make me feel this way, well, there's a reason I've been hooked from the start. So I guess that all I can really say is thank you. Thank you to Brendan Small for never giving up on Metalocalypse and for never giving up on us. Thank you for giving us a beautiful send-off to this series and this story that I'm going to remember fondly for the rest of my life. My fellow Gears, that was Metalocalypse. For me, it's a series where just about everything shines. The characters are iconic both in personality and design. The narrative is often as thrilling as anything that you'd see on the big screen. The animation is fantastic, and as far as satire goes, this may be the most intricate and clever I have ever seen. Yes, I mean that 100%. Not only does it poke fun at all the right genre tropes correctly, but it understands why it's doing so. Something a lot of satire lacks. In my opinion, Metalocalypse is like Mel Brooks level of genius satire. Lovingly crafted with meticulous attention to detail and some amazing music to boot, I can't think of a better investment of your time if you're a music lover, if you're an animation lover, or if you just have respect for the craft and a well-told story. No matter which way you look at it, I can promise you one thing, and that's that Metalocalypse will not let you down. Well, everybody, I've been Fatman, and thank you for watching. Did that have enough zazz? I hope that had enough zazz for you. I don't want to create a review that's not zazzy. That was another long one. I think I forgot how to write short reviews, and there was a gap in time because after I did my Sons of Anarchy video, I think I forgot how to write reviews in general. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, be sure to leave us a like, subscribe, maybe even hit that stupid little bell so you don't miss anything that's going on. I have 1 or 2 more retrospectives planned before I really need to start turning to the comment section for these, so if you have something you've always wanted to see me talk about, leave it below. I'll consider it giving it a look. The next one, the only hint I can give you on the next retrospective is that I am so bad at math. It's 2025. This was set. It's a period piece. We're setting back like 50 years or something. I could be wrong on the dates. I am absolutely horrible at math, and I will take up another 20 minutes of your time trying to do this in my head. I am not kidding. For ZeitgeistOG, I have been Fatman. Once again, thank you for watching. Thank you to Brendan Small. Thank you to Death Clock, who's the most brutal band of all time. And go watch Metalocalypse. You will not be disappointed. I'll see you all next time. Matt, I'm finished! One day I'll write a shorter script. I just don't know when that's going to be.
When we do Invader Zim.
Metalocalypse is an animated musical comedy that focuses on... Do that line again. Metalocalypse is an animated musical comedy series... Do that line one more time. I'm coming in. And 19 years... Jesus. Or defending them in court amidst the several thousand murder cases that occurred I almost had that line. And going on to utter one of the... Do that line again. I want to avoid being repetitive and bringing up the music on a season-by-season... Do that line again. I want to avoid being repetitive and stopping at every single season to bring up the music, which is always great, so I'm just going to note... Charles returns from the dead and renegotiate. Let me do that line again. I have a general methodology... Do that line again. I have a general methodology for... That was right. Why'd I stop? Do that line one more time. However, as all the ships carrying the new records set forth a cataclysmic storm destroys all of them. Every single copy record... One more time. Charles then tells them of Charles then tells them of One more time. Then in 2016, we got the final nail in the coffin that kind of killed all our dreams as fans after waiting with bated... Fuck. Edgar Hatch is a clever... Let me do that again. Edgar Hatch is a clever band... One more time.